Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel with my coffee, with my books and my reviews, and a really great thunderstorm outside. So before I started recording this, I was closing my window blinds so it wouldn't be so bright in here. And it's raining and thundering, and my phone says lightning in the area, and there are people still in the pool. Like, I think they want to try to make people soup. Because don't they say you're not supposed to swim when there is lightning around? I mean, I'm just saying. I guess, do what you do. But at least last time I heard, you're not supposed to do that. But let's dive into the book of the moment, which is The Witch's Orchard by Archer Sullivan. I loved this book. If you like Southern Gothic with great mystery set in the mountains of Appalachia, which is a region of the country, it's kind of like, think like the west side of the Carolinas and the Virginias, all along the Appalachian Mountain right in there. If you can picture moonshiners there and a lot of mystery, and where time seems to have stood still for quite a few generations, that is kind of, now I'm not saying completely blanket statement here, but that's the vibe that you get kind of from that area. And this book really hit the nail on the head, kind of representing small town Appalachia with some really great mystery. So let's dive into the summary after I take this sip. A ninth-generation Appalachian herself, Archer Sullivan brings the mountains of North Carolina to life in The Witch's Orchard, a wonderfully atmospheric novel that introduces private investigator Annie Gore. Former Air Force Special Investigator Annie Gore joined the military right after high school to escape the fraught home life of her childhood. Now she's getting by as a private investigator, and her latest case takes her to an Appalachian holler, not unlike one where she grew up. 10 years ago, 3 little girls went missing from their tiny mountain town. While one was returned, the others were never seen again. After all this time without answers, the brother of one of the girls wants to hire an outsider, and he wants Annie. While she may not be from his town, she gets mountain towns, mountain people. Driving back into the hills for a case this old might be a fool's errand, but Annie needs to put money in the bank, and she can't turn down a case, not even one that dredges up her own painful past. In the shadow of the Blue Ridge, Annie begins to track the truth, navigating a decade's worth of secrets, folklore of witches and crows, a whole town that prefers to forget. But while the case may have been buried, echoes of the past linger, and Annie's arrival stirs someone into action. So, I picked this up because I think I saw a quick blurb about Appalachian, and being kind of atmospheric, a little moody mystery thriller, and that sold me on it. Like, from the start, I was like, yes, please give it to me. That area exudes a sense of mystery that I really, really enjoy. So it is considered mystery, thriller, fiction, witches, and I did have the audiobook. One of the genres says audiobook, so yes, I would agree. It says paranormal, but I will leave that up to you to decide. I wanted to think if you could throw this into magical realism, but I'm not 100% certain I put it into that category. There is enough going on that leaves the air of mystery just on the edge of figuring it out, so that way you're just not sure the entire time you're reading it. So I really, really liked the way this book was written. The audiobook was incredibly well done, and I was hooked. So it's only about 320 pages in the hardcover. I want to say I'm just trying to think. My audiobook may have been 9.5 to right at 10 hours. And I finished it so quickly because I could not put this down. The episode that I record after this, the book was 4 hours long, and I think I finished that in one sitting. So, but this one, maybe two sittings, because 10 hours, I didn't have 10 hours in a single day to dedicate, but pretty darn close. It will be published. Is it? Oh yeah, it is past August 12th. So it was first published August 12th of 2025. Had to look at my computer because I kind of forgot what day it was. I was like, oh no, wait, this hasn't come out yet. But I am just a few days behind and plan to release this the day I record it. So it'll only be just a few days after the 12th. Anyway, let us dive into my thoughts. So Annie Gore, she is kind of a private investigator. Of course, that means that people can come to her. She has a PI's license. She has a concealed carry license. She's doing everything by the book. She is not skirting the law in any particular way. However, she used to be in the Air Force, and for part of her career, she did do some special investigations. So she does have a knack for figuring things out. Now, to our knowledge, when this story kind of first starts, she must have been doing something in the past, and potentially, we could explore more from Annie in the future. Now, to my knowledge, this is not a series, but I could see that if the author, Archer Sullivan, decides to go down that route, that Annie could have some really fantastic cases that we could continue to explore. If this is a one-off, then it's an incredibly well-written one-off, because everything in this story really does culminate to a great ending. There's lots of twists and turns, lots of good characters with complex dynamics, and I kind of want to know more about Leo, who's calling her every day, as well as AJ, this local cop from this little Appalachian holler town. Or holla. It does say Appalachian holler. But if you kind of live there, I think a lot of R's are dropped on a lot of words, as well as G's. Instead of something, it'd be something. And I am from Louisiana. It is not Appalachia, but I am, by kind of growing up in that area, I was in Louisiana probably 25 years of my life. So that's quite a few years just in Louisiana itself. So I could be construed as a country girl, but you would never know it to hang out with me probably. But so this book didn't resonate with me on a personal level, but I loved the complexities of the story. And I love when a book surprises me, although, okay, personally, the ending, I was like, I had a thought, I had a theory. I think when anybody walks into any mystery thriller, if that is a genre that you tend to pick up, you try to guess who it's going to be. Because most frequently, authors will have some red herrings, which means kind of false clues, and they'll also have the culprit be someone you've already met. It is not super frequent that it's some random person from the grocery store down the way that you have not encountered in any capacity. I don't think there's really a great deal of mystery or suspense if it's not someone who is integral to the story that's being told. And so from my perspective, I kind of figured it out, but it's still got some great twists with kind of all the rationale and justifications. And so I did go back and forth a little bit as well, but I'm trying not to spoil anything because I do want you all to try to read this if it comes across your radar and if you run across it in your local bookstore. But Annie, she starts out the book kind of I don't want to say hard up for cash, but yeah, kind of. She's had upon one of her most prized possession, which is like I think a Submariner Rolex that was left to her by her uncle. And so she's really kind of missing that at this point. So she does take this job kind of with the hopes that she can put some cash in her pocket, maybe do a little bit of investigating, but really kind of get back on her feet. And it seems as though her office is really like a studio apartment slash office, but she's doing her heckin' best. And so this young man kind of schedules an appointment with her. And when she sees him, she is like, this guy's, I'm not, he's not going to have any money. This is not going to be the case that like helps me out. However, he's willing to offer her about $800 a day for a week in order to come to his town. He will even put her in his Airbnb that he has, and he will let her borrow that free of charge, like that is included, as well as this $800 for her to just try to figure out what happened to his sister 10 years previously. So she's like, okay, well, she tries to put up front, hey, you know what? It's a 10-year-old case. Sounds like the locals couldn't figure anything out. Sounds like the FBI couldn't figure anything out. We may be running up against a dead end. And he's like, I still want you to come. And so she tries again. She's like, okay, look, I may not turn up anything new. There may not be anything to find. And he's like, I still want you to come. So she goes ahead and goes, and there's something about this particular case that I don't know if it's maybe because she's from a similar area, or there's something about this town that gives her these vibes that she just wants to keep looking. But while she's there, she starts milling about with some of the people of the town. Of course, the local sheriff's not super thrilled that she's there because she's stirring up old wounds, stirring up old things from the past that I guess local sheriffs would prefer if they just stayed in the past. Fair enough, but some people need answers. And so she starts looking around and she starts asking questions. But she's doing everything by the book. She is not overstepping her line. She is towing that line and doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. And so he really can't fault her for that. Of course, he wants to. He wants to be like, you're an outsider and you're stirring things up and you're causing a commotion in my town. But the thing is somebody is targeting her now. Somebody breaks into the cabin while she's there and takes some of her stuff. Someone shoots at her and she gets grazed by a bullet. And various other things trying to almost scare her off the case. While she's there, the body of one of the girls who went missing 10 years ago turns up. Now, when she was taken, she was about 4 or 5 years old. But when her body turns up, she is as old as she would be had she been like living her best life with her family. She is about 14, 15 years old. She is the appropriate age and she has just died recently. So this is kind of a big warning that she's stirring something up and someone has now ended one of these lives. And so that makes her really curious because where has this person been for the past 10 years? Because they must be local. There's no way they would have been taken, and then 10 years later, she's aged, like the little girl has aged, now become a teenager, and then all of a sudden perished. So very, very curious. Then another little girl gets taken. Another little about 4-year-old girl, Lucy, I believe is her name, gets taken. And so now Annie is adamant that she has to figure this out because she was starting to bond with Shiloh, who is Lucy's mom, just, I think Shiloh is like the local baker. She's got a bakery shop. She's also really good friends with Max. She helped Max, who was the brother who hired Annie. So Shiloh was really good friends with Max. She was almost kind of like a second mother to him after his mother passed away and his sister was taken, and then his dad went off to be a long distance truck driver. Max was kind of left alone. And so Max just wants answers. Shiloh is kind of supporting him, but now Shiloh's daughter is also missing as well. So you kind of feel like there's a bit of a time crunch in order that you need to figure this out and rescue Lucy. So I'm not going to try to spoil anymore, but I think it is really, really well done because you do get to dive into like some myth and folklore of the area. Now, I don't know how I don't know if this witch of the witch kind of lore is a real story of lore about a witch who had an apple orchard, and an old woman, or not an old woman, but a woman came and pretty much sold her two daughters to the witch for all these apples. And then when the daughters were kind of grown, they flew from the witch, and then the witch turned into a raven in order to go find the little girls. And so that's a very rough retelling of this witch legend that seems to be prevalent in this area. Now, again, I don't know if that was created for the story, but it works so well because, again, like myths and folklore of areas, they do change a little bit, with little bits extra, little bit less from person to person who tells it. So she gets to hear this legend from a lot of different people throughout the book. So you really start to kind of wonder, is there a real witch? Is that what's going on? Is she keeping the girls somewhere? What's happening? I really do hope this might be a series. If we can, this was a debut from what I'm to understand. I'm just kind of going back to look real quick if it says how many books Archer Sullivan has. Yeah, it only says that Archer Sullivan has 4 books, and let's click their name. There's The Witch's Orchard is technically 2, and Brimstone Hollow is another one, but I don't know about that one. But maybe that's a sequel. I don't know. I'm not even going to click on it. I'm going to be surprised whether one way or the other. Not even sure. But I think I'm going to go ahead and leave this here because I do not want to spoil it. I could definitely spoil it and I don't want to. But with the kind of, I would say, Southern Gothic, Appalachian, think foggy mountains and mysteries around every turn and lore and legend coming to life, I definitely recommend this book. It is really, really well done. A surprising debut. I would expect something like this from a fairly seasoned author. So glad I got my hands on it, and I think you should too. But with all of that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one.